What is up? The game we're about to see completely disrupted an opening theory of one of the oldest, most well-known chess openings, the Italian game. And we're gonna enjoy this game. First of all, it's been called the game of the year because White managed to unfold a really beautiful combo, sacrificing his queen. It was a game, by the way, between Dubov playing white against Karjakin playing black. But after that, I'm going to also show you how you can make use of the same opening idea, because that's really cool. Not every day people can find a new idea, novelty in such an old and so well-known opening. Now let's get right into it. So let's get into the Italian game. First of all, again, one of the most common chess openings on amateur level, and pros play just as well. And here, after pawn to c3 and knight f6, pawn d4, so far all of the classical stuff like takes on d4, and guess what White does here? Well, in most cases, of course, White recaptures, but not in this game. Sometimes White does play pawn e5, attacking the knight, which is also a well-known stuff, right? That's what all the normal human beings do. But in this game, Dubov played a completely new move, pawn b4. Well, strictly speaking, I mean, it's not a complete novelty. Some folks play it on amateur level, but really very few, and none of them, I think, are title players, so really nobody considered this move seriously. But it turns out that b4 is actually a very powerful idea, because if not for b4, there isn't, that much that White can do in the Italian game. The classical theory says that, you get a recapture here on d4, and if Black knows what they're doing, they're fine. They'll go bishop b4, check to the king, and at some point maybe hit White in the center with the move d5 and equalize without a problem. And so the classical theory says that there is not much really White can get out of this opening. But the b4 gives a new life to this old opening, and I think that you can very well try it. Guess what? If Karjakin, one of the top grandmasters, was going down so badly here, guess what? It's gonna work against your opponents tremendously well. Well, what's the point behind this move pawn b4? Well, there is like an obvious idea, want to win the bishop, but if bishop goes back, and it does, we keep pushing our pawns forward and keep harassing Black. At some point, our pawn will probably go forward and kick this knight away, and most of the variations we're going to do that, but first we play pawn e5 and also attack this knight. So we start pushing back all of the Black's developed pieces. Black has only 3 of them, and we, one after the other, attack them all, so that's nice. After e5, Karjakin played knight e4. There are also other options. I'll show you what to do there in a minute. Let's start with the move, which is a fairly natural retreat of the knight, and that's what Karjakin did in the game. Here, White played another out-of-the-box move. Normally, you'd expect that White, do something about this pawn, maybe play b5 or take somewhere here, but he played a very interesting move, bishop d5. Disregarding this pawn and actually forcing Black to capture it, and what's the point? Well, it turns out that this bishop on d5 kind of shuts down, blockades Black's position, because Black can't move their pawn here and develop normally, because this bishop just physically blocking the pawn. And now White goes bishop g5, continuing his attack of the queen. In order to counter it, Black has to move their knight back. And now, though Black got a few pawns, but in reality they're completely pinned and paralyzed all around. So White simply castled. Black played pawn h6, bishop retreated back, which didn't change much. And after Black castled, White played another cool prophylactic move, rook e1, kind of saying, hey, what are you gonna do next, dude? It turns out that although theoretically Black has many options, in reality he's completely limited in what he can do, because just think about this. This knight is pinned, right? It can't move. The queen has to guard the knight. Black can't move their d-pawn, which they would generally speaking want to do to finalize their development, because after that pawn takes d6, and now we can see the point behind White's previous move, rook to e1. Now Black is going to lose their knight on e7, and for that reason that's not an option. Let's take that back. And if not pawn d6, what can Black do overall? There is just not many options at all. Karjakin played a weird move, queen e8, at least trying to unpin this knight, but of course that blockades the rook out, and still it all looks clumsy. Anyway, the knight is now ready to potentially grab the bishop, so White moved it back. Black played pawn a5, trying to somehow, get life to his pieces on the queen side, but White completely disregarded that and played bishop f6. So it's really cool how White just keeps playing those creative moves to develop his attack against Black's king. Now, taking this bishop would be suicidal for Black, because after that opens up Black's king, but not only that, that also loses the knight over here, and if we capture it, let's say, with a pawn, this pawn can have a really advantageous journey and can pick up the rook on the next move, so that's completely bad for Black. Instead, in the actual game, black did not take this bishop. He played pawn e4, trying to somehow distract white from his plans, but white says, I don't care, just kept his bishop on this active diagonal, because it's ready to attack black there. Black tried knight g6, black is desperately trying to somehow move his pieces out of the cage, and white continued with queen to d3, which creates a very cool threat of queen takes g6, taking advantage of this pin. Therefore, the pawn can't move and couldn't recapture, so queen d3 is a big deal. At first, it looks like black is almost done here, and there is just no defense, but Karjakin, being a strong grandmaster, found some way out. He played a move pawn d5, which looks really bad at first, because white can take the pawn this way, or even stronger that way, which he did in the game, because that also opens up this attack along the e-file, but Karjakin prepared bishop e6. And by sacrificing this pawn, at least black managed to finalize their development somehow and more or less, neutralize white's huge advantage in activity. But white played another beautiful move, which is a really cool combo. Queen takes g6. White played this move anyway, despite black seemingly prevented this from happening. So that's really spectacular. And after pawn takes, white just played rook takes e6. White sacrificed his queen for 2 minor pieces, but it turns out that white's army is just so active here on the king side that black is still defenseless. Now, right now, the major threat is this discard attack. White can grab the queen somehow, So black played queen to f7, trying to move this queen away from the attack and maybe pin, the rook to some extent. But white played a combo of bishop takes c3, saying, hey, my attack is so strong, I don't have to hurry. And all my threats are still alive. For example, rook can go back to e4 and, win the queen after that, something like this. And the main variation of the white's combo is that if black takes here on d6, saying, hey, okay, let me just do the most natural move, white has another beautiful follow-up. Rook takes g6, just sacrificing this bishop completely. And that's something that extremely rare you can see on a top-level chess nowadays. White is playing this old-style combo. If queen takes c4, rook to g7 check, king is forced to move, and now white takes advantage of this discovered attack, plays rook to c7, check to the king, attack of the queen, and white gets a material advantage, which is enough to win. This combo actually reminds me of another famous game which was played almost 100 years ago between Torre playing white against Lasker, and that was a big upset for the world champ. He thought that this bishop along the 5th rank is pinned and, is going to be captured on the next move and black will win. But instead of all that, white played a shocking move bishop to f6, just letting black capture the queen, and black has to, because, white's going to attack anyway, so black at least captured the queen. But now rook takes g7 started a classical windmill tactics, and basically chess society, so to say, learned the windmill tactic from this game exactly. So after that, right now, black is just up a queen, but white starts to use this windmill tactics. Check to the king, white picks up the pawn, king has to go back, now check again, king goes to the corner, now the rook picks up the bishop, and again there is nothing black can do but to move back. Now rook goes back to g7 and white keep collecting the harvest. After king to h8, finally white goes rook g5, check to the king, and after that grab the queen on h5, and later white won the game. While everybody was acknowledging the beauty of the game played by Dubov and his combo, sacrifice of the queen, I think that you can also pay attention to the opening variation and make use of it, because hey, that's really something really cool that gives new life to the Italian game. And after b4, let me just show you what you can do. Black usually goes back bishop b6, the most natural move to play. You keep playing e5, kicking this knight away. In the game, Karjakin played knight to e4, and as we saw, that didn't work out really well. White played bishop d5 and kind of completely blockaded black, and black couldn't normally develop until his position was lost. So that's not really perhaps the best move for black to play. The usual way for black, after white just played pawn e5, is to counter-strike with the move pawn d5. That's how black usually should react in similar situation, in similar different opening variations. And now, what are you going to do there? That's probably the most challenging question for white. In this case, you're going to take on f6, and after pawn takes c4, black managed to keep their pieces active, but there are other issues, of course. Their king, for example, is vulnerable. You can play queen e2 and attack it right now. Black goes bishop e6 to cover it. And now you play another tricky move, pawn to b5, which sets a very deep and clever trap, actually. Pawn b5 is a common move. We just want to kick this knight away to a more passive position. But in this position, in most cases, black, instead of moving the knight, plays a very natural looking move, pawn d3, which looks very lucrative for black. Not only black saves this pawn, but they actually got this strong passer pawn, attacks the queen. What more can you ask for from a single move? But this turns out to be a rather terrible mistake. I mean, on a practical level, maybe Stockfish can defend it, I don't argue that, but on a real practical level, black usually loses after that within a few moves. So we go queen e4. Now this knight is hanging. They usually move it on to a5. Now we take this pawn on g7, attack the rook. We keep attacking as long as we can. The rook has to go. And here, at this point, we finally can figure out what was wrong with the black's move pawn to d3. It turns out that this move pushed white's queen to the right square. And now we can grab this pawn on h7, save our pawn on g7, which is so strong, and put black in a big trouble. But of course, it was very hard for black to foresee all that, to calculate all these variations. And that's why black goes into this trap so often. Now, instead of taking the pawn right away, you can also toss in another in-between move, bishop g5. We keep attacking, and it's a nice move because not only we attack the queen, but after the queen goes away somewhere, black's king wouldn't be able to castle because he can't cross the attacked square. Therefore, bishop g5 is useful in many ways. Now, black should go queen to d5, and now queen can finally take on h7, attacking the rook, saving this pawn on g7, which is so monstrous, so strong. Again, black can't castle because this bishop is cutting it off, and basically black is done. Black has to play king to d7 to put the king in such a vulnerable square just to somehow defend the rook, and now you just castle. And if you look at the position overall, what we can see here is that, first of all, we got this really strong pawn, which black just can't get it back. You know, we can always defend it if we want to, or if we need to. This pawn on d3 is not that big of a problem for white. We're going to develop knight to d2 anyway. And, you know, this will develop a knight and stop this pawn, so that's not an issue. This knight on a5, look at this. It has nowhere to go. Can go here, it would be captured by the white's pawn. Can go here, it would be captured as well. So the knight is completely out of the game. The king is vulnerable. And for that reason, Stockfish gives it something like +3 already here. I'm just going to show you one game real quick so that you can see how it can possibly roll out after that. Trying to get the queen out, but of course we play queen h6, want to keep guarding the pawn. Like played queen a6, still desperately trying to do something against white's pawn, but bishop to f6 defends it. Black can't really get rid of this pawn. Bishop g6, black is trying hard. Knight e5 check to the king. The king is vulnerable. That's one of the issues for black. Again, since it couldn't castle, it's always in trouble. The king went back to c8, and white just played queen h8, making use of this strong passer. You know, we're attacking the rook. Of course, if it captures over here, you know, we're just going to promote a new queen. And, you know, of course, black could play some other moves, but basically their position is lost anyway. You may say that black just played the wrong move in the previous variation, so let me show you what to do in case your opponent is so advanced and can calculate variations so well and doesn't get into this trap, but in most cases they actually do get into it. So after e5, we attack the knight over here. Black strikes back with the move pawn d5, and we are ready for the exchange because this opens up black's king. Now we play queen e2, attacking the king. What's nice about white's moves is that you always attack, just in different angles. You attack in the center, you attack on the king side, you attack on the queen side, you attack all around, which makes it very challenging for black to figure out how to defend properly. Anyway, bishop e6, pawn b5, and we know that the move pawn d3 actually, on a practical level, loses for black. What if your opponent does not play that move, either because he's so advanced or because he's weak and just didn't see this move and just moved the knight out? In that case, well, we keep capturing, keep attacking. We keep capturing the pawn, attack this rook. Now after rook goes away, now we capture this pawn. So black didn't push it forward, and now we can get rid of it, which is nice. And what I also love about this variation is that most common moves of black, most popular, are usually losing mistakes, actually, because the position is so complicated, it's very difficult for black to figure out the right way. Their king is vulnerable, you know, and the knight is out of the game. While you can just castle, you know, play all the standard chess, you know, knight c3, all the standard stuff. So it's much harder for black to figure out the right way. In most cases, they actually do take here on d4, which seems natural. White takes, black takes, but it turns out to be wrong because after this trade on d4, at first looks cool. We've got this queen attacking the rook, but white simply plays bishop b2. And not only this kicks the queen away, notice that it now defends this pawn on g7 permanently, meaning that black can't ever hope to get rid of it or to take this pawn. And that actually determines white's winning advantage, basically. For example, this game black played queen d3, offering an exchange of queens. And then white played bishop f6. Again, a similar motif that we've seen previously. We prevent black from castling, and also this bishop keeps guarding this pawn. And after the trade of queens, at first may seem like the position is, just a normal position, but in fact, black is completely lost because this pawn is so strong. Black's rook has to stand there forever just to, not let the pawn go forward. So this pawn almost equalizes the power of the rook. This bishop prevents black from castling, so black can't finish their development normally. This knight on a5 is out of the game. Again, it can't move at all. And for that reason, you see that it's really hard for black to move, really. Basically, besides this bishop on e6, black can't really move at all, right? Which makes your position easily winning. Like in this game, black played c6, trying to, somehow get this knight back to life after an exchange, but white just played knight c3 correctly. And now black wants to get this knight back after pawn takes. Now white activates their knight, threatening knight c7, knight d6 stuff, so that really didn't help black too much. Black here played king to d7 to stop knight from coming to c7, but now the king is under the fire. Rook d1, king goes here to c6, and white played rook to b1. Black tried a6, getting rid of the knight, but now that's checkmate in 2 moves. Rook to d6 and bishop to d4, checkmate. Again, black could have played different moves, but anyway, you can just see overall what's the white's plan and how you develop your attack. If you got fascinated about the Italian game, then I've got this video which covers the top 5 opening traps in the Italian game. It will give you some more tricks that you can pull off against your opponents. And also, if you want to level up your chess overall, this masterclass will help you in doing just that. Wishing you a great rest of the day. Talk soon. Take care.